The following moments may contain explicit language.
Roger, Charlie, we're ready to rock.
Welcome to the SNMF Dugout Diaries, where today's guest is Karl Gillingham, Myeloke FC, a football club based in Myeloke, Brighton, in England. The club was founded in 1948 and has since become a well-established part of the local football community. They play in the Southern Combination League, Div 1, competing at Step 6 level in the English football pyramid. The club has a strong community presence and is known for its commitment to developing local talent and fostering a family-friendly environment. Karl Gillingham, welcome to the Dugout. How are you, pal?
Yeah, very well. Thank you very much for having me, Mike.
Good. Now, Karl, we connected online. You're a person that is not only have been involved within the playing side, but we wanted to get a bit something different. We wanted someone really behind the scenes, maybe someone that is a bit more in tune with maybe the youth side, maybe the admin side of it as well as the playing side. So we're delighted to have you on today. But Karl, for people that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your early life, where you're from?
Yeah, of course. So I'm 36, grew up in Portslade, but I live in Shoreham now. So I grew up sort of in the Portslade Myeloke area. Come from a big family. I've got lots of brothers and sisters, but yeah, grew up playing football in the Portslade area. Went to Packer School, and then moved to Shoreham about 10 years ago. But I was well involved with Myeloke at that point, so never really left the football club from a playing committee perspective, although I have had a couple of stints away at other clubs, very short ones. Never really left a sort of Myeloke as a key club of my life.
So what do you do in your day job then, Karl?
I work in procurement for an insurance company for Hastings Direct. So yeah, I look after it. It's more like it's contract work for services for car insurance.
Plenty good enough. So the first thing I want to talk about is I'll get a little bit about your playing side. Where were you as a youngster?
Yeah, so I started off at ASU Strikers over in Shoreham, and then a little spell at Fishersgate with the likes of like Colin Bridge and Terry Livesey, who were involved in the club at that point. All my friends though played for BN Wanderers under Chris Webber. I was like the chairman at that time. One of my friends' dad, Steve Whiting, was the manager of the team. So I went to BN Wanderers. They had the best team around. All my mates played for them, so like Lloyd Skinner, Nick Curley. They'd really got Luke Huggett played for him, Jason Powell.
I know Luke very well.
Yeah, so they were very, very good. I probably went from being the best player at ASU Strikers, probably like one of the worst players in that team. But I played enough football to keep me happy. We won pretty much everything. Those boys absolutely ripped it up and smashed it. So we pretty much from my teenage years won everything there up to sort of about the age of under 16.
Position do you play?
For them, when I was youth, I started as centre forward and then worked backwards and ended up at centre half as I sort of hit under. Yeah, I think when I joined BN, they had Luke and Jason up front, and there's just no way I was getting in up there. So I ended up, I think I played centre half towards the back end. But I've probably been going back and forth between forward positions. I played everywhere. I played in goal, played midfield, play up front, play anywhere across the back line. I've probably played every position for Myeloke, to be honest. But yeah, youth started up front and then ended up at centre back.
Well, obviously the listeners only get to see the audio, but I'm looking at yourself and you look pretty chiseled. Looks like you still look after yourself.
It's been a bit up and down. At the moment, I'm back fit and playing. But yeah, definitely a few years ago, probably not the case, unfortunately. But yeah, okay at the moment.
So what drove you to Myeloke? And this is a club that's been around since the year dot, a club that has a loyal fan base, big part of the community in there. Always a tough place I found going away in there. Not for the fact that it was hostile, because the people are very, very welcoming at that club. And I've had that experience this year as it is.
Yeah.
So what drove you to Myeloke, really?
Yeah, so I left under 16s football and actually went across to Lancing United and played under Beansy and City for a couple of years in sort of
Oh,
adult
right.
football. So
Yeah.
so I listened to City's podcast the other day actually. So yeah, he's a good bloke, and Beansy I've played with at a couple of clubs now. So I was there for a few years when I was like 16 through to like 19. But Steve Whiting had taken the BM Wanderers squad to Milo Resis. He
Right.
first of all took them to Burgess Hill first, and I had a little stint there, but that didn't quite work out at under 18s. But then he landed at Milo Resis. A lot of what Milo did at that time, it was all local, and we were fortunate. The club was fortunate, I guess, that they had two good Sunday League sides that attracted a lot of good players as well. So the Millhouse and Dorvet at that time were the two clubs.
I used to
So
come across them when I was with the Clifton and the old Sussex
yeah,
Sunday Leagues, and some
yeah,
great
they're
players in that team.
proper good teams, and I had affiliations with the Millhouse and with Steve. That's where one of my stepdad used to drink when I was younger. So I spent a lot of time there. So yeah, Steve was involved with them, and then obviously got in at Milo. So that's how he got in, and then eventually I left Lancing at sort of the age of 19 and joined Steve in the Resis. And that was probably the best period. We brought a whole school team to the club, so the likes of like Aaron Stennin, who went on to play like over 500 games, and me, Nick Curley, his granddad was chairman, his dad was chairman, and now Nick's chairman. Nick was playing at that time. We were all playing for the Resis. And whilst that was going on, Lloyd and Aaron had pretty much got straight in the first team because Lloyd was at Brighton when he was a bit younger. And we were playing Resis, and those were in the days where you basically finished football. Both teams went back up the Milo pub afterwards, drank till the early hours, then woke up, played for Millhouse or Dorvet, whichever side you fell on, which was a bit of a Milo thing where some went one way, some went the other way. Competed on Sunday morning, then went back to the pub, either the Millhouse or the Milo, until sort of Sunday evening, and that went on for probably the best part of 5-6 years, I'd say, during my time.
Do you remember Tony Burnett from the old Dorvet days?
Of course I do. So TB is so he's actually technically now, so he's one of our youth coaches.
Oh, is he?
So
He's a good guy.
technically,
A lot of time for him.
yeah. So technically, I'm probably his boss for the. I was on the youth secretary for that side, but then he's the vets manager. I play vets as well, so he's my vets manager. I've just texted him just now. Actually, he's chasing me up for some fine money.
Well, you tell him I said hello, because I
Yeah,
used to have the battles with him. He's a good guy.
yeah, we'll do. He's one of those that kept me out the first team probably for far too long playing first team football when I was in the Resis. But yes,
So I'm looking at Milo.
yeah,
See, you're surrounded by a lot of clubs in there, not least Brighton and Hove Albion. Okay, and in there as well, you've got other clubs of a standard that might be a step higher than you, or the same kind of step. How do you attract players to the club? Because by all intents and purposes, there's not too much of a budget there. I'm not asking you to confirm or deny that, but you always have been a self-sustainable club.
yes.
What appeals about Milo to some of the other teams?
Yeah, so I guess going back in the day, Milek have never paid a player for playing football, so no money's ever left Milek's bank account to land in a player's wallet. So that's never happened. That's something we're proud of. I'd say back in the day when Whitty was manager and I sort of first started playing first team football under him, it was that club culture. We were very famous for it in the local area where you became part of the club. So I guess the drinking culture, the socialising culture. We used to do TB used to arrange tours. We used to go to all different places in the summer, down to Bournemouth and Margate and all those sorts of places. So that was part of our culture. We used to have some fantastic times at that point. Football's obviously changed in that time, and that's one of the sad things that culture has slowly been falling away a bit. So we've had to go about it a slightly different way. Probably from the time that Whitty left the club, we needed to bring in managers that could bring in their own players. So Ben Shoulders came in and he brought the likes of Juppie and Enzo, Joe Ben and Enzo Ben. He brought that sort of squad in. Then we
Joe
had
Ben,
Curtis Foster.
I've had him on the podcast. He speaks so highly of Milo.
Yeah, he's a great lad, and I see him quite a lot because he teaches around the corner from me. So I see him, I speak to him. I've tried to re-sign him a couple of times. Yeah, that's difficult with the way he's gone. So obviously Enzo's been involved. His dad still pops up and that and sees us and interacts with us on socials. So yeah, with those ones, we've been relying on teams coming through and managers coming through, and we kind of reached a point where that probably wasn't working, because you can't always land that manager at a club that's got no budget and difficult facilities to always get the right manager. And we've had a couple of bad instances where, not bad instances, but I guess managers haven't been able to get players in, and then we've struggled for a season or two. So now we have a massive youth section, which I look after alongside Nick Curley and Sam Cornish.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, of course. So
Because before you jump in, but before I've heard that this is one of the most growing
yes,
youth sections around. I'm a firm believer in the youth is the future of the club if you're going
yeah,
to be a sustainable club.
yeah.
Okay. So talk to me about the teams, roughly how many you've got, how many youngsters you have on board.
Yeah, so we've got about 30 teams, just shy of
Wow.
that, and about 400 players are registered with us at the moment. So that spans from under sixes through to under 18s. So that's what we count it for. We've got under 23s above, and then we've got seniors, vets, and ladies above that. So we've got just
You've
above
got
30
ladies
teams.
side as well, then.
We've got ladies, and I coach my girls team. We've got girls teams at under 8, 9, 10, and 18.
Wow.
And we've got boys teams right through from 6 to 18. We've got multiple at different age groups. So the way that came about was it was a COVID thing. So we were sitting in COVID, and I ran a free return to football thing at the football club. I just said, get out of the house, we'll run it. Me and a few of the coaches. It was actually me, TB, and Wayne Whittington, I believe, Whitty's brother. We started it up. We just ran an 8-week program, and all of a sudden, people just went, well, we'd like to form a team out of this. So we formed a team that then split into 2 teams. We're very strong. This went straight in at under sevens. We then attracted a couple of teams. So Sam Cornish came across from Lancing United, where he'd been with Sooty.
I know, Sam.
We took a couple from we took one from Hove Rivervale that wanted to come to us, and then I think what the key one was a Milo Wanderers, who were a youth set up in the local area. They had a couple of teams that also wanted to move. And I think when that happened, Gary Mansell was at a Vets game with me. I was watching a Vets Cup final over in Lancing.
Garrett Burgess Hill.
That's it, yeah. So Gary
His
was
one
involved.
drops on Saturday.
Oh, did it? I haven't listened to that one yet. So
Yeah,
he
this
was
Saturday.
involved. He was, yeah, I'll listen to that one. He was involved in Milo Wanderers, and obviously his connections with RMA and Wanderers. We was at a Vets match, and we was in the pub before, and yeah, he just said, you seem to be doing well. You've sort of grown to 4 or 5 clubs and got the right idea. The Milo Wanderers committed reached a point where all their teams had got to under 16, 17, so they're at the end of their journey. So like Cole Gondre and people like that, they'd ran a fantastic club, and he said, do you just want to take this over? And it wasn't really my plan to, because we wanted to grow a bit like Sooty mentioned he's grown, organically, get all the right people in, really pick and choose who you wanted. But there were a few positives to it. One being that they had a network set up. They had cash in the bank that allowed us to do things that we wanted to do. And they had training facilities and access to pitches that we could just pick up and run with.
Okay.
So it wasn't our intention, but they did. So we've basically inherited all those teams, and they're all kitted up as Milo FC now. We now operate across about 5 different sites.
What sites are these then? I'm assuming these where you can train with the guys.
Yeah, that's it. So we have Portslade Sports Centre 3G. That's where we do all of our training.
Is that with the first team as well?
First team train there, but they don't play matches there because it doesn't meet ground grading. We have Packer School we hire. We took over the lease to the ground, so we use that for some youth matches. There's a pitch that's next to it, which if you ever turn up, which you are doing soon with Arundel in sort of January, February, you might be asked to warm up on there from time to time. But that's now under a license we agreed a couple of years ago. And we've got another pitch just off the Downs, a massive field that we operate from as well. So there's a couple of other schools, Blatchington Mill School, we use that as well sometimes. But yeah, we operate across about 5 sites to make sure we've got lots of teams. So I'm kind of running 2 journeys at the moment. We had the idea that we wanted, a bit like Sooty, we wanted football people and football places, but we have inherited a lot of sides that are just here for grassroots football, just to deliver grassroots football until they hit under 16s, and then that will probably be them. And we've got others that are really really wanting to push and develop. We've got some fantastic coaches at the club. We've we've got a really good reputation, I'd say, in the area. So we've got the likes of Rob O'Toole and Brian O'Toole both at the club. So Rob coaches with me, Callum Saunders, Ben Petty, Danny Curd. We've got TB, Ian
These are
Gilmore.
all quality players or quality
Yeah,
experts.
Ian Gilmore, who used to be an Arsenal scout. Louis Stewart, they're all like UEFA B, and we've got them at the club because we offer good facilities for our training and for coaching our children. And our pathway is very clear. We want to have teams that are strong and going to push through to under-18s. I'd probably say at the moment, under 11s downwards, we've got a team in every single top division or two. So we
That's
represent in
fantastic.
top divisions. And then we've got one or two. Our under 12s are really strong as well with Ian and Louis, and our under 15s are very strong. We've picked those up from other clubs. They've not been naturally grown, but that's a good thing that people want to come to our club because they see the pathway. They might be at a club like a Hove Rivervale or Hove Park, for example, that are really good youth setups, but you reach a certain age and you start going, well, what comes next? I'm going to have to go find a club at under 16s. Whereas we can just take you straight through. And I know a lot of other clubs are now either were already doing or following that model. I think Vardinians are in with Seagull, Brighton Seagulls, and you've got other club, Whitehawk, I think, have got into bed with Hollingbury. A lot of other clubs are doing this, where they're either partnering up with a youth setup or just having their own. It ticks a few boxes. It ticks pathway boxes if you're looking for a 3G or funding. It ticks those boxes as well, I'd say, for some of these clubs that are partnering up.
So you've got all of these youngsters, and it's fantastic to see the amount of youngsters you have on the books. However, these numbers are running in my head. You're working on the youth fixtures and the secretary for there. This sounds like a nightmare job. Talk to me, because for the listeners that don't realise what it actually takes and the work behind the scenes to actually take your child from yourself to a club for the season. Talk to me about the work that goes into it, please, Carl.
Yeah, so first of all, we don't, being a Brighton Hove based side, we actually don't rely on the council for anything. So there's lots of our other clubs that would hire off the council. We do everything. So we mark the pitches ourselves. I do a lot of that myself, and I've got, fortunately, the coaches are all on board that they have to mark pitches if they need to. And we sort of try to work it on a bit of a rota that you might have to mark it. But I'll typically be the one that would do the initial lines so that you get the old string out and whatnot and put the initial lines down. We just ask coaches like once every 4 weeks, it's your turn just to go over those lines. So that's one thing, get the pitches marked out. On a kind of weekly basis, it kind of starts on a Sunday night, I guess. I write the schedule up for all 30 teams, whether they're home or away, and then I allocate them a pitch based on where they are and based on various factors. I've got a lot of coaches that, for example, have 2 teams, so I've got to weigh that in. And then I've got a team of fantastic fixture secretaries that kind of sit underneath me, I guess. I've got Glyn Rowland, who heads up the fixture secretaries for the Mid-Sussex teams. And then I head up the Sussex Sunday ones and the Sussex County Girls football teams as well. So I do all those fixtures myself. But yeah, Glyn does a great job with the Mid-Sussex teams because we've got about 10 teams that sit in the Mid-Sussex division. So that all goes on. Sam Cornish and Nick Curley look after all the money. Which is a good thing, as I'm not particularly good with money. I like to spend it rather than count it. We've got various committee members. Chris Giorgio does kit with Ben Page. We've got Victoria Linfield, who does our events. But we have a subcommittee. So the senior club and the youth setup are completely separate in terms of finances and in terms of committees. So we have 2 separate committees, and then we feed into senior in terms of saying this is what's going on with the youth. So I'll sort of represent the youth. But no money changes hands. So we don't take money off parents and then start paying some striker 50 quid a game or 100 quid a game, which does go on at other clubs, as you'll know, that they take money from the youth and they pass it through. For me, it's not the right idea, especially at the level of football that we're at now. The level of County 1 compared to what it was 10 years ago, and people are still asking for sort of £50 to £100. It's a bit bonkers, really. But,
I want to go into that in a bit when we move forward. But one question I do want to ask you, and I think I already know the answer. I'm assuming this role you do, which is obviously time consuming,
Yes.
Okay, you've got your own day job, your own family, things like that.
Yeah.
This is a volunteer's role, not a paid role. Am I correct?
Yes. No one on the committee earns any money, senior or youth.
Uh,
So yeah, I'd say that I get I get a discount for my daughter registering, as do all committee members and coaches. But no, and I'm sure there's the odd bit of kit that I've picked up from time to time that I've not paid for. But yeah, I don't get paid anything, and neither does anyone else.
and this is what I want the listeners to understand, okay? Because we've, I'm looking to get obviously on here refs, committee members, things like that from all different aspects of football.
Yeah.
As far as I mean, I know what it's like to coach a junior side. A lot of the parents turn up, leave their kids, pick them up,
Yeah.
and okay, and that's fine. But what they don't see behind the scenes is that admin work that you or your team are doing. If you could put into perspective, how many hours a month would you have put into Milo yourself?
I'd probably say I put more. I probably put similar amount of hours in per week that I would do in my work. So probably you're talking 40 to 50 hours a week.
That's
Because of that,
crazy. That's
yeah. I mean,
crazy.
it's hard to add up because the phone doesn't stop. The phone goes off all day, so you have to sort of ignore it at times because obviously you're trying to work and keep your day job. But you, certain coaches will message me all day, without fail, every week with a query or a question. You've got the fixture window. So obviously I do the schedule on the Sunday. We then send the invites out to other clubs on Monday, and then they'll filter through by Wednesday. So you've got to do all those replies all those times. You've got to physically go out and sort the pitches out. Thursdays the ref allocations come out, so you've got to sort that out. Then you've got to do your Saturday pitch inspections, make sure all the pitches are ready. Sunday you then I've got to then coach on a Saturday, and then probably play for the vets. I might have played for the first team on the Saturday, and then Sunday night you restart over again. And that doesn't throw in things like we arrange a tournament, probably I think the best tournament in the local area in terms of the effort we put in. So we're now starting to plan for that for the next 6 months. We've got to plan for end of season events. I've got to do Sussex FA hearings and courses, and if my coaches ever get in a bit of trouble, I've then got to deal with complaints and reports and parents that want refunds because they've left, or parents that want to join, and questions that come in. So yeah, hours and hours and hours. I'm really fortunate to have a really great committee that sit there and they've all got their role to play. And I do try to push our queries to them as much as I can, because they are great at what they do. So yeah.
I mean, part of what we set up this platform was exposure um, for the local community clubs, such as yourselves, such as the other 55 other clubs within the
Yeah.
Sussex non-league region. But part of it I wanted to do was to highlight the volunteer effect within non-league football. You're
Yes.
telling me there now that in theory, you are putting in as many hours as a full-time job for zero money.
Yeah. Easy.
Complete
Yeah.
volunteer work. A lot of people out there, I reckon over 90% of people, listeners out there, will be like, I didn't realize that. You know, it's on a par as well with like referees. If there's no referees, there's no games. If there's no people like yourself in a club, there's no club.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's not a pure time. So it's not like I do 2 hours in the morning, then work 9 to 5. It all just like crosses over. So it's hard to quantify, but yeah, it's about, I would say it's about the same. And you know it when you go to sleep and what different things you're thinking about. It occupies.
Okay, Carl. So cheers for talking to me about the youth setup, and not only that, about what it takes to actually run behind the scenes. I'm glad our listeners will understand the amount of volunteer time that goes into a club. Let's look at the actual club, the facilities, Milo as a whole now.
Yeah.
Now, from my point of view, always a tough place to go. Got the pitch on there, slight slope on the pitch, I'd say.
Yeah,
And
definitely. Yeah.
It's in an area that's pretty enclosed in
Yes.
there.
Hard to find. Yeah.
Talk to me about it. Talk to me about what's been done at the club. could potentially be done, and what just can't be done, basically.
Yeah, so when I first started, it is a council land, but the
Yeah,
council were responsible for it, so they would cut it, they would overseed it in the summer, or if they ever did, and they'd mark it out, and we essentially just had to turn up and whatever the council had left it for, left it. However they left it, they left it. So small things like at this time of year, because if they work on like circuits, they would just scalp the pitch, leave tire tracks everywhere, and just ruin it completely. So then this went on and on and on and on. So because they don't want to come back for another 3-4 weeks. So what eventually happened, I think there was a trigger point for me in like 2018, 2019. So like Ben Shoulders, who came in as manager, done really well. Brought in Jupy, brought in Enzo. He left, done a bit of a dirty on us, went to Southwick, which is
well, look what happened to them.
Yeah, exactly. And so a few of the messages we had from players that he took with them or tried to take with them were, they talk about facilities, Southwick did have on paper better facilities, but shame it was all falling down around them. So I sat at a committee meeting and just went, whilst we can all moan about people leaving, can we do more? And in fact, during Ben's time, we had Lowell involved, Lowell Edwards, who you had on recently, and obviously
Great guy, love Lowell.
Yeah, so he's a groundsman. Actually, he was helping Ben out, and he was making the pitch better himself off his own back, just by bringing his own little tractor up and doing his own thing, rather than rely on the council. And that sort of perked my ears up to go, actually, can we just get rid of the council and we'll just do it ourselves? So I started doing it ourselves.
It's not the council no more.
No, so
because I thought it was.
No, so it's still council land, of course, but we took the lease about 3 years ago. So what happened was after that, I've gone, well, hold on a minute, why don't we just go out and get a tractor? I think Ben Shoulders actually got the funding for this whilst he was still manager, and then left, and we eventually got this little ride-on mower, which I had the joy of trudging around the pitch. It took about 3-4 hours, but you actually sort of got things better because you told the council to stay away. Don't bring your big tractor on there. They can come back in the summer and cut it and stuff like that. That's fine. But in the winter, stay away. We'll just do it. And it took hours and hours and hours. So we've just slowly been trying to improve on stuff. I applied eventually for a grant through Football Foundation, and I've now got tractor, cutting deck, grass tuff. So I've got everything up there. So I just do it all myself now in the summer. We do now because in addition to that, in terms of improving the place, the pitch is now better than it was. It's got more grass on it at the start of the season.
I can verify that since we played there. It looks a lot better.
Yeah, it definitely is. We lock the ground up, so it used to be that people would walk through it. They can't do that anymore. So you literally have people playing on it on Sunday morning. Dog walkers used to go on the pitch literally 10 years ago. They used to have a dog walking session on our pitch before we would play a County 1 football match. And they just walk across the gut. They didn't care, and there's nothing you could do about it. So we've got all that sorted with the council. We've got things like the new pay hut, the new T hut, which generates a revenue for us, which we can actually pay contractors to also come in and do professional drill seeding and overseeding. So I arrange all of that, as well as I then cut the pitch. I cut it, I mark it out myself. I've got a couple of other people that do help from time to time, but the county pitch is my full responsibility, really. Change rooms are now better. We've done little tweaks, mainly the home, the away. We've not really done much to be honest, but there are plans in motion that we want to improve that, mainly for the ladies' game. We want to have cubicle showers and things like that. So we're looking at funding opportunities for that. But yes, now it's our responsibility to do it. But we've just been slowly improving one thing at a time. We've just had a new kitchen installed that we got from the Howdens grant. So that's now up and running. We've just got two new toilets installed at the front of the building because the other toilets have been there since the 60s. So they're now there. I think we've got you in a couple of weeks. You'll be the first team to arrive and see that we've asked your spectators that.
Well, good. I can give an honest review.
Yeah, brand new toilets in a brand new part of the building, things like that. But the pitch is a struggle because where we're different to other clubs, I guess we've probably got the reputation of having the worst pitch around because it's on a slight slope and it doesn't always have grass on it. You look around and you go, it's a bit warm, but we do rely on volunteers to sort of tidy the place up. The issue we have is that because it's a good issue that we have really good drainage there because it sits on top of chalk. Okay. So our games are on most of the time. If Milo ever have a home game called off on a Saturday afternoon, I would expect 95% of the rest of the county, other than you sort of maybe Bexhills and Eastbourne towns who've also got good drainage, I'd expect all those games to be off. What I don't see us having a game off and then everyone else is on. What that unfortunately means for us is it's always being used. So when you come in a couple of weeks, there isn't a lot of grass in it at the moment, because if we use it for ladies, for vets, 18s, 23s, first team, we've probably had over 60 games on it already.
But in contrast to us,
yes,
our games are always off because we're on the wetlands.
exactly. And that's the argument I always have with people. And they go, well, they say, do you got the worst pitch around? I'm like, well, do we though? Because clubs like, and all good clubs, I don't want to sort of smear them or anything, but like Arundel, Billingshurst, Uckfield, Roffey to a degree. I'm not sure, they've obviously gone up a league, so I'm not sure what they're doing this season. But you basically can't play on the pitch between November and February. So
I can't argue with that, because
yeah, so
we had a game called off last night.
Yeah, but it's difficult, and yes, of course, those grounds are better than ours. September, October, and end of the season, better facilities, more grass on the pitch, and whatnot. But we do get games on. We've got a bit of a reputation for that. And it's a bit of probably get more games on than I'm comfortable with as the person that has to tidy up. I get a bit of pressure from certain other committee members and other people that are like, it's a grass football pitch. It's going to get dirty. It's going to get muddy. Just get the game on, get the game played, and we'll move on to the next one. And that is kind of still a bit of mentality that I'm probably not fully comfortable with, and we'll start to be a bit more cautious with it when it comes to under 18s and under 23s in the future. But we've already played most of our under 18 home games and under 23 home games.
And to be fair,
some sides don't even play them.
23 is the top of the league at the moment.
23s are flying, and we had this last year with
who's the only team to beat you?
Yes, Arundel. So I wasn't at that game, but what I believe happened was we were 3 up, and then our goalie got sent off, and then you came back and won 5-3 or something like that.
Yeah, that is correct. Your goalkeeper, each moment of madness, bless him. And
yeah, so I think we were a couple of goals up in that, and then ended up losing by 3 up. Goalie got sent off, and then the comeback was on.
But
so yeah, that's the only game
you've won another 9. You've won 9 in a row.
They are a bit wary of Pagan, because what happened to them last season was Shoreham under Ryan Harmon, who'd done a great job there. They were flying at the top of the league, but Pagan were one of these sides that just called off all their games, constantly.
Yeah, I mean, they played
the
best games than us.
Yeah, and then they walkovers galore, and then they played about 8 games in about 4 weeks or something silly. Won them all. Credits to them. They won all those games, but yeah, I think you should be winning games through the course of the season rather than going, here's 3 weeks of football, go in a football league. But yeah.
Well, I think it's a good time then. We can start drilling into this squad. Let's drill into Milo, because excuse me, I'm looking at Div 1.
Yeah.
You are sitting bang smack in the middle of Div 1 at the moment as we go to recording. Yeah?
Yeah.
Comfortable, I'd say. Got some great players there. Now, before we dive into your squad, I like to ask officials of clubs, especially in the Div 1 and the Prem, a bit of a taboo subject.
Sure.
I ask about money and players. Yeah. I know there are clubs sitting below you with budgets potentially £600 to £800 a week. Okay.
Yeah.
To pay players in Div 1. I've got no problems if those teams are top of the league, running away with it, ambitions to get in the Prem, go from there. In your opinion, is that a sustainable way to grow a club? Because some of these clubs are neglecting their youth, whereas you're doing it totally the opposite. You are investing in your youth and not paying players. What's your thought? What's your honest opinion on this?
Well, I'm probably on the stronger side of the fence that people shouldn't be getting paid to play football in County 1 football, unless, I'll caveat that unless you're going to be winning the league. So I've been involved in and out first team for about 10 years, and the team that have won the league have often paid the most money. It's always been that way, which is fine. There's been a couple of exceptions in there that have gone up just on whatever, but we've always sort of been under Whitty anyway. We were always sort of top 6 side, but the teams that were paying would go up. But there's
Do you find this is tough?
Yeah, it's difficult because my challenge with it would be when I was in my prime age, so in my early 20s, I couldn't get in the first team. So people like Steve Porter, Chris Payne, defensively keep me out of the team. Danny Curd, keep me out of the team up front. So a resi player. I'm now 36 and I can play first team football. That
Yeah,
tells me the standard has dropped considerably, and there's various reasons as to why that
I
why that
agree.
is. And I look at the players that played for Milo for free over the years: Danny Kerr, TB, Graham Martin, Lloyd Skin. They all paid for free. These are
Joe Ben.
top players. Jupy played absolutely for free. Didn't get a dime. Now I now look at some of these players. I guess you'll probably get David Baker on at some stage in Montpellier, but he's probably a good
Funny
case.
enough,
Dave,
Dave's due in next week.
yeah. So I've probably, so I don't know the ins and outs. Probably it's more murmurs than not, but they would have definitely paid in the past. But they've now done a bit of a U-turn, I'd say, where probably they've realised it's not sustainable, and now they're playing a lot more. They're playing a lot more young players, and they're now trying to climb up the table. It's not sustainable to just pump 11 players onto a football pitch unless you're going to really go for it and win the league. You'll essentially just end up sitting mid-table. 3 or 4 players will leave in the summer, and you're just constantly churning different players out all the time. I see the same sides doing it every year. I don't get it. I think someone's paying for it. Either the kids are paying for it through the youth setup, or sponsors paying it and doesn't care, or the club's just wasting money that they shouldn't be wasting, in my view.
Okay, let me put it to you this way then. If the club had what's called, I'd say, a sugar daddy, and a guy that, or guy, girl, whoever, that would pay out of their own money, not the club's money, then what's your view on that?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing is, are they willing to put their hand in for other stuff as well? So we've got a couple of people involved in our club that have got money. Now, I would rather they put money into other things. This is specifically about Milo. We've got other things that we need to improve, and we almost want to reach the same point where facilities have improved and the team on the pitch is ready for promotion, so that we can go up at one stage. Now, I'm not saying that's this season. I'm not saying it's in 2 seasons, but there's get your house in order first would be the message. So I don't like seeing a club that aren't trying to improve their ground and aren't trying to do stuff. And I'm aware that we still have probably one of the worst facilities around, but we're trying to improve it. Clubs that aren't doing that, they're just standing still and throwing money at players. That is bonkers to me. Now, clubs that pay money, like Roffey's probably a good example.
Yeah.
Yes, they obviously paid money to go up, but they've improved their ground and facilities alongside that. So no, I've got no problem with that. No problem with that.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, it's the clubs that just spend money, ignore the ground, and then just for a bit of short-term success, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, in terms of, so if one of our chairmen decided, I want to keep Joe Ben or re-sign Joe Ben and I'll pay him out of my pocket, that's got nothing to do with the football club or our income or expenses. Now that's never materialized or happened, but as an example, personally, I wouldn't care as long as that chairman was willing to invest in the ground as well and not just paying some player to boost his ego that his team's doing well on the football pitch. You got to do both. You got to do both, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, some listeners give me a bit of grief and say, you go on about teams that have money and that pay out. I said, I don't mind that, because it's a conversation to be had, and it's a conversation people don't talk about. Okay, and I don't care. I will talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Because as a player, I believe I was overpaid when I was at a younger club. I was paid, and only at our level, I was paid £30 a point. That was like 15, 20 years ago. And I thought, as a centre half, well overpaid, but I didn't realise there was a sugar daddy in the club.
Yeah.
The problem I get, and the thing that bugs me, is this, and you've already mentioned it, is if other parts of the club are not getting the investment, whereas it's just those 11, 16, 20 players in that squad for the first team, and you're neglecting the youth, you're neglecting the facilities, you're neglecting the all-round club experience, then I have a problem with it.
Yeah.
If you've got some guy in that's sold a couple of houses or something like that and has a few quid later on in life to do what he wants, not a problem. Yeah, that's out of his. When it starts coming, you're robbing off Peter to pay Paul to try and get quick success, then I believe it should be talked about.
Yeah, and to be honest, this is where ultimately this is somebody's money, and they will probably respond and say, "I'll do whatever I want with my money," and that's fair enough. What has annoyed me in the past is where I know it's not coming from a sugar daddy, it's coming from a youth section of a club paying for stuff. That's when I have a big problem with it. If somebody wants to throw their money at a 30-plus-year-old player just to keep them in the top six of the league, that's completely up to them. Like, no, that's their money. They've earned their money however they've earned their money. That's completely up to them. I would still push from a committee perspective if we had someone like that at our club, and we do have a couple of people that have got deep pockets. Help us out here first, help us out there first, and we'll grow as a club, not just go, oh, let's build a side that could get promotion and then we can't meet ground grading and we come straight back down again. So yeah, rich people can do whatever they want with their money. If you've got that sort of money, then do it. But as long as I get the hump when I know it comes from youth football, that annoys me.
I get that, and I'm 100% with you on that. Okay, let's look at a different way then. At what point, with the legalities, taxation, stuff like that, at what point does that start crossing a barrier? Say for example, you got a squad that you think you're just off winning the league with, but the sugar daddy wants to come in and pay a top striker 250 quid to go and guarantee that. At what point does that go from brown envelope to declaring? There's a grey area there, isn't there?
Yeah, it is grey. And to be honest, I've always worked for a company, so I've never had to worry about my tax receipts and stuff like that. But that's down to those people that are self-employed, and I guess it's an additional salary that you may or not need to declare depending on the total value that you generate in that year. So if you're getting a little bit, it might not need to be, but if it's over a certain value, and I don't know what those values are, because I've never been self-employed. You probably do. It's more down to the individual receiving the money to declare it, I would expect, and there's probably a little bit in terms of money moving out of hands as well. But I must admit, I've never lived in that world, so I don't. I've never been self-employed.
I often think the more I do these podcasts and the more I speak to teams, I often think if that's a storm brewing in the future for clubs, not just in Sussex, but all around, when you're at these levels, because I do know that when it gets to teams like, let's say Horsham, for example, that's all declared, everything like that. It's all behind. But I do know of players that do get this, and you one day think that might come back and bite them in the arse one day.
Yeah, I mean, I think the day will struggle is obviously they're trying to get rid of cash, is what the world is trying to do. So there'll come a time where you can't just give somebody cash, and that will obviously be the issue. That when you're sending someone money, then you've got to potentially hide it another way for some type of service that you've received to receive that income. I don't think we're anywhere near that yet. So we're probably at least another 10 years away from brown envelopes, I'm afraid, and there's not a lot we can do about it.
Well, let's see if we can all get one. I'm on board for taking one. Anyone that will say. Anyway, let me just jump into this. I want to jump into squad. There's a couple of players I want to just talk about. I'm looking at these stats. You've even banged in 5 goals this year. Where did they come from?
Yeah, to be honest, I get a bit of stick for this because I have been playing up front, and it's a weird one. I'm probably not in the team, even though I'm playing centre forward, to score goals, if that makes sense. I sort of try to knit the team together. We've got a very, very young team. They're all sort of early 20s, similar to some other sides that most of them are 21, 22, came through Milo under 18s. They're all now playing. I got a hat trick against Montpellier, which might go down as the worst hat trick in the history of football.
I'll ask Mr. Baker about that when he's on.
Yeah, the first one was okay. I held the player off, bit scruffy finish. Second one, they didn't have their proper goalie in, and I don't know what his name was. And the second one, I hit it from about 25, 30 yards, and I actually looked away, and the goalie walked across his goal line, and it just flew in the corner. And then the third, I tackled him and scored. So I think, not good. I got a winner against Selsey, which I was pleased with, and I scored at East Preston, which was quite amusing because I actually scored from a corner, and the player decided to handball it on the line like 20 minutes in. So I've scored. I beat the goalie in the air, and it's going in. The player has dived across the line and saved it. The referee and Lino took about 5 minutes to decide whether it was a penalty. It was unbelievable. I'm obviously screaming at them because it's I need goals for my stats, otherwise I'm on the bench soon. They eventually give it. East Preston management are going mad because if you've seen it, you've seen it. If you've not, you're not. But it's definitely 100% penalty, 100% red card. the penalty was then missed, a rebound missed, and then I nodded in the follow up.
Right, so you got the goal in the end then.
I said to them, I said, you should just let me score the header in the first place, and we would all just got on with our day. So yeah, they played most of that game with 10 men. They done well actually second half. They nearly we grabbed a late winner, but they nearly just probably should have got a draw with their effort second half. But yeah, so they're my goals. I should have a few more, I would say.
Well, I'm going to pick out 4 or 5 players. I just want to cut the words on each. Talk to me about the boy Robbins, Harry Robbins.
Yeah, he's really very, very good player. His granddad is Tony Gratwick, so Gratters is our assistant manager. Obviously, to Sammy Donnelly. Really tidy player. He's obviously one of probably the Shoreham under 23 lads that was with Ryan Harmon. Probably got a bit of first team time under Deffy when they got promotion. Really good player. We've been after him actually for 2 or 3 years, and we finally got him this year.
Good player.
He's a good player. He scored some cracking goals. I've said to him he's a bit of a 70-minute man and he needs to work on his fitness for those last 20. But they're all quite young, and I think a few of them at that stage where they're finding Friday nights and stuff like that. And you do see some red eyes sometimes on a Saturday. But he's good actually because he's a Brighton season ticket holder. And at the start of the season, he was missing games to go to Brighton, and he's obviously enjoying his football enough now that he's not going to Brighton. He's picking to play for Mile Oak rather than go to Brighton. So
is that anything to do with Brighton's form?
Probably has something to do with it, but and the new founding manager. But yeah, he's a really good player, and I hope we can keep him for a couple more years at least.
All right, talk to me about Joe Patchin, another guy I rate.
Yeah, Joe's a strange one because he came in last season as like a left winger. I think he'd been at EP and a couple of other clubs. And again, he's a tidy little player. We started the season. We've been a bit back and forth from a back four without trying to give too much away. A back four and wing backs. He started as a wing back and just really impressed me. I didn't really know if he could play there, to be honest, because he's quite short. And to get up and down that wing is quite difficult. But he played really well, scored some really good goals. And now he's played a few games at left back as well. So he's left back. So you're basically asking someone who's come to the club as a left winger, now you're our left wing back or left back, depending on what system we play. He's done really well. Solid player, chipped into some good goals.
What about Liam? Liam Smart, I like him as well.
Yeah, Liam Smart's probably the find of the season, to be honest.
He's a good player.
He came with Harry. I knew nothing about him.
I looked at him pre-season.
Yeah, I saw him in a pre-season game, and he's so aggressive. I thought, bloody hell, he's going to give away fouls and stuff like that.
No, that was one of the traits that we were looking for.
And yeah, he's really matured. And you need that. You just need to go tight to forwards. He's quick. He's good in the air. He's the final of the season. But he's another one, unfortunately. I think someone might have said, is it Palace? He might be a season ticket holder out or something like that. He likes to go to the Palace or one of the football grounds. I might be doing him a disservice there if he's a Brighton fan. But yeah, he misses the odd game because of that. We tend to have that at Mile Oak. We have a lot of players that maybe could do a bit higher than us, but they have other things that they like to do.
Yeah.
So they they come and play for us. The dream is when they all kind of finally click and they can all play. You're like, wow, we've got a proper team here.
And the last lad,
unfortunately, that's every week.
The last lad I want to speak about is Mr. Masters, another guy I rate.
Yeah, so Alex came through our youth. Really, he came through the under-18s. That team's got Alex, Chris Witt, JJ, Matt Thompson, and Simon Thompson. Matt's dad ran that team. They should have won the under-18 league, but COVID voided their season, so that's really unfair. And they were doing really well with the 23s. He should have been playing football for first team football for a long time, but he goes to university quite far away, so he has to travel back for us. I think he's got another year to go at that yet. So we've got 7. I think there's a 7-dayer in for him at the moment from a club. I don't think he's going anywhere, so he's all good. The squad is really tight knit, but he's class. He runs all day. He needs to get more goals, but he's one of those, and I put myself in that camp. I do a lot of work outside of the box, but he needs to find a way, because he's a lot younger than me, he's got time to learn to do his hard work outside the box, but get in the box and get a couple of goals, because he's a decent finisher. He just does so much. He runs himself into the ground outside the box and doesn't get the chance. It's not like he's missing chances. He just doesn't get the chances that someone who's playing in the 9 or the 10 should probably get in a game for a good team. So that will come with a bit of experience as he goes through his years. But yeah, he's a class player. We've got a bit of a running joke with him because I think Sammy mentioned once that he had Alex up on his mantelpiece. So we like to call him mantelpiece every now and then whenever he does something good or bad. So yeah.
I love that. Well, before we go to the last part of the show, and I'll drop some questions on there. I want to say that I think you are a very well run club from someone looking in. I think at times, because of the teams around you, the lack of brown envelopes and that, you do sometimes punch above your weight there. But that is because you have a conveyor belt of players coming through
We do now, yes.
from,
Yeah,
from,
we
from
do.
youth. Now, had you not put that in, you would be in the situation where you're looking for mercenaries every month.
Yeah, well, you rely on managers. Once Whitty left, we didn't have a regular manager, and it's quite hard to check your manager. So you basically we had Ben Shoulders came in with a bunch of players. When he left, they all went with him, or some of them went with him anyway. Then we had Curtis Foster came in. He picked up some of those pieces and brought some of his players. And then when Kurt left, again, we lost Dupy, we lost Big Z, we lost George Rudwick, we lost all these really, really good players. Enzo Ben came in. He's a really good coach. Didn't know any players, so it didn't quite work out. Tommy Kerwin was the same. So we've now got a manager in Sammy that knows enough players to bring a side together. But that youth conveyor belt that you talked about, that is what the future holds. And he's already pumping in. So we've already got plenty of in-23s that have been fully part of our youth system through. And probably Alex, Chris, JJ, all sort of Milo Wanderers / Milo FC youth boys, really. So they're all playing first team football.
Love that. Right. Now, this is one of my favourite bits of the show, the end bit where I give you some 3 minutes of quick fire questions, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Right. Let's get my little clock out. Okay, starting. Tea or coffee?
Neither. I don't drink any teas or coffees. It's water all the way at home, I'm afraid, or a beer.
Cheat meal.
Sorry?
Cheat meal.
Oh, Chinese all day long.
Okay. Stranded on a desert island. Who's the 4 players that are going to get you for a month?
4 players. So yeah, Joe Ben. We'll have Aaron Stenning in goal, Mr. 500 appearances. Obviously, he'll go mad if I don't mention his name once. Yeah, Aaron in goal, Joe Ben, Danny Curd. He'll get you out of anything, and I will chuck Stiggy in there as well. Steve Porter at the back.
Who's the biggest joker in the changing room?
It's a weird one actually. We got Chris Witt is the sort of fines master, so he does all that stuff. But we've actually just signed Lucas Laney from Worthing. Obviously, his dad's involved in Stewart's, obviously at Shoreham. Luca's got a bit of a weird, dry personality. He can't stop telling jokes, which is very annoying for me, I must admit, as a senior player listening to some of his nonsense. But Chris Witt is probably the biggest joker, but Luca seems to have a joke every 8 seconds.
Who's the
not very good one?
Who's the one player you would entrust to be in charge of the first team for one game if none of the managers or coaches were there?
Well, I often would do that. So I help out with coaching as well here and
Without
there. So
you.
it'll probably be me. Liam Dance. So Liam Dance is a PE teacher. Well, I think he's not sure if he's a PE teacher. He's a teacher across the road. So naturally, he's 6'6" or whatever he bloody is. He's massive, and because he's a teacher, he knows how to talk to people.
What's the one player you keep well away from first team manager duties?
JJ. So Jack Jeffrey, class, such a good player. JJ. He lives like next door to the ground. He lives on Chalky Road.
Right.
He's late every game, every training session. He's late. Turns up late. He's unbelievable. So you can't have a manager turn up late. So I definitely wouldn't have JJ in charge of anything.
If there was a film about your life, who would play you?
Film about my life, who would play me? No idea. Somebody very boring, I expect. No idea. Sorry.
Outside of football, what's your favourite hobby?
Well, I'm now into high roxing, so I will get loads of stick for mentioning it. But yeah, I'm into my fitness at the moment. So used to play a bit of poker. So that was a good hobby of mine. Used to
online?
Play a bit of poker.
Do you play online?
Used to enjoy going down to the casinos, to be honest, and playing some cash games to a certain age. And then once I sort of got a mortgage and that, I decided and family, I couldn't do that. So do a little bit online here and there. And I go play down the local club on a Friday sometimes. But yeah, I'm now into my fitness, so I've got another event in March. So that's why you may not see me in the Arador Games, because I go back on sabbatical about 4 to 6 weeks before my next event.
Fair enough. And the last question: favourite away ground in the league?
Oakwood, because we always win there, or we did under Whitty. It was one of those we used to always look forward to Oakwood. Chris Payne, Whitty would always say, "Where do you like going?" We just always win, and it's like a nice service when they ground shared with Crawley, or Crawley were training there, and they had a bit of money coming in from that. Their pitch was lovely, but they were always like bottom half of the table. So you'd go there on a nice pitch, and we just always beat them. Results recently have been a little bit more patchy, and the pitch is not as good as it used to be, but it's a bit nicer now. I think they've had a bit of money in, obviously, from some ground showing they're doing, so they're doing all right. But yeah, Oakwood definitely just a happy stopping ground.
Well, Carl, you've been an absolutely excellent guest. I'm really pleased that you've actually give an insight, not only into the squad and the club, but what actually goes into running parts of the club as well. I really hope that some of the listeners out there get the idea of how important volunteers are in non-league football, whether it's the fixed secretary, the groundsman, the lady in the tea hut, whatever that is. I hope they do. Before we go, anyone you want to shout out, speak about, say hello to, say thank you?
Just a few bits. So just well, mainly Whitty. He's Mr. Milo. He does just as much as me, if not more, around the club, and has been doing it for a lot longer than me. And he does things properly. And I can't believe he's been our chairman now with Nick Curdy for the last 12 months. I can't believe after he left us as manager, no other clubs came in for him, because he's definitely one of the top managers around. But he's our chairman now, so hands off. But yeah, he's a great guy. And Sam and Nick. So Sam Cornish, Nick Curley, my school friends. When I took over from Milet Wanderers, I think they saw it was quite difficult and probably very stressful, and they've both just sort of stepped in and gone, "I'm going to come in and help you." Nick's come in as chairman of the club and doing a lot, and Sam comes in me as sort of co-secretary for the youth and does loads for me. So, and they've probably only done that because they're my pals. So yeah, shout out to them.
And the one thing I say before we go as well, I just want to point out something to some of the listeners that probably don't know. If you ever attend a game at Milo, you will have to walk up some steep steps as you enter the ground. There is a fantastic and what I would call classy tribute to that fateful day with the Shoreham air disaster for one of the
Yes.
lads that sadly lost his life. Can you give us a couple of sentences, Carl? Because I thought it was one of the most classy acts I have seen a team around here do.
Yeah. So Matt, it's a difficult one because obviously Matt played for Worthing United, and obviously so did Jacob. But Matt was a Milo boy, so he came through our youth system. He had a very successful spell with the under-18s, under Gratters. So Gratters was his under-18 manager, and then when I was managing the Resis in my mid-20s, when I had an injury, so I managed the Resis. He was my goalkeeper, and so I played with him as a Resi player, and he was my goalie. And one of those. You text him normally when you text people, "Are you available for the game?" He's the only player that ever used to reply to me and go, "Yes, thank you." He used to always say thank you. Just I never forget that he used to always do that. He's such a nice lad. I played with him for AFC Shoreham under Nigel Geary on a Sunday as well. Um, so it was one of those. The day it happened, we because he'd left us the season before, because obviously Aaron was our goalie, but Matt was just as good as Aaron. But there was always a decision to make. And he went off to play first team football, and he won the league. I'm so happy he got those double. But opening day of the season, he's travelled from the same area as me. He's gone west. We went east to Little Common. It was a really strange one because we were playing Little Common. I think we were 1-0 up. And we sensed something was going on. On the way there, we knew I live in Shoreham, so I remember texting my wife going, "Everything okay? Like, nothing's landed in the garden, has it? Like, you don't know how serious it is." We've then gone off and played a bit of football. But Whitty and Payne, who were running that day, found out about half time that Matt's car might have been involved. So in our team was Eric Wedgeball. Eric Wedgeball's a class little player, lives in London now, but he's like one of Matt's best friends. Came through the youth system, and he was on the pitch. So at full time, I think he might have said something to Little Common, who I think got a late equaliser or a late winner. I can't really remember. I think Lewis Hull probably popped up with another goal. And they just walked straight off the pitch, Little Common, and we didn't really understand what was going on. And they just sat us down in the centre circle and went, "This is what's happened." And then I remember just being in the showers with in the change rooms and showers, and obviously Wedgwood was a state. A few of us were a stake, and spent the whole journey home. And then I'm texting people like, I think I remember who was I texting people like Mark Stewart, who were involved. He's sort of in the Lancing area, and Mark was involved with him at Milo as goalkeeper coach. So then that obviously it all came out that the two lads unfortunately were involved, and we lost them. So, but that that our lads, they've been at our club for sort of well, Matt anyway, for 5-6 years, and obviously Jacob we knew from football. So we had to do something. Luckily, Brighton were fantastic, and they Chris Hewton attended the funeral, which I went to, and TB spoke at the funeral, and Milo represented. So they did a Milo shirt and a Worthing United shirt at the Amex. We played Wolves at the Amex, so I went out with like Whitty and a few others. So yeah, it was really tough year. I think Phil and Jacob's parents, so Phil Grimstone. So I speak to Phil every year to speak about referees and whatnot. I make the plans for the games at Culver Road. And I always play in the friends and family matches. I always like to see Lyle and Nigel Edwards, Nigel Geary, sorry, Nathan Bowen at Worthing, all those sorts of lads that always turn up every single year and see the families. So he's a great lad. He deserves to be remembered at our club. I love the fact that Worthing have named their stand after him. That's brilliant. I think we'll probably do more in the future. It was just something we wanted to do at that point.
I just think it was class.
Yeah.
I think it was class. In the future, if there's anything we can help out with from our thing, please just ask. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and clubs are great. I think
for as long as those boys' memories can be in people's heads, the better.
Oh, they will be. So every time we go those steps, we play the match every year. It's a weird one. That South goal, I always remember Matt being my goalkeeper in, and the amount of times you've gone back and he's called for it off, and you just get like weird little flashbacks in that goal. So everyone at the club remembers him, and obviously his friend Jacob as well. So
well, I'll tell you what, Carl, you've been fantastic for having on. I really wish you the club every success. They're obviously in great hands. Looking forward to coming down there for the return fixture and seeing you all again. Okay.
Yeah. See you in a couple of weeks.
Cheers, pal.